Brighter Light, Darker Shadow by Backing into Infinity, read by Oak Shadow 5. This chapter contains chapter 18 and 19, so let's quickly start with chapter 18. New Shadows Lurking. Summary. It has been a week since Dane's capture, and events are evolving rapidly. For the students, finals loom on the horizons. Aizawa shuffles the papers the principal had set in front of him with a sigh. The large thermos of coffee steaming in front of him, the only thing keeping him alive in the staff meeting.
Alright, let's go over this one more time,
he says, his voice gravelly from the lack of sleep.
You want to change the final exam to make it significantly harder in light of recent events, by having the students fight against teachers.
Absolutely, the annoying rat principal says, clapping his paws enthusiastically. We will pair each student with a teacher who can best challenge them in the way they need most for their growth.
Fine, whatever. This is only going to double my paperwork for this exam, but it's fine, I don't need to sleep anyways.
I commend your dedication as always, Aizawa. That's the enthusiasm I love from my staff.
Right, well, obviously, Todoroki and Bakugo need to face All Might. No one else can challenge them in the slugfest, and he will do better forcing them to work together than I could.
I agree, the infernal rodent says, sipping his third cup of tea that meeting. And Midoriya and Shinzo can face Present Mike, giving them a target that can brute force through Midoriya, and is relatively immune to sound-based assault. They will benefit from facing an opponent immune to their normal strategies. Aizawa groaned, thinking of how much trauma a fight with a demon child would inflict on his husband. The sheer time loss from all that comfort and all those rewatches of Glee alone would kill his sleep schedule for a month. Oh well, such is his life.
I will face Uraka and Yaozu. Uraka needs to overcome the silly fear of quirkless combatants that drop from tall objects. It will do Yaozu good to be put in a situation that she needs to adjust to on the fly as her quirk vanishes.
Excellent! Now, for the next pairing, I was thinking... Darby, formerly and newly known as Toria Todoroki, shuffles the papers in front of him as he stares at Giran. The info broker and black market dealer was smirking back, another spread of paper in front of him alongside a freshly full cash box. Dealing with Giran was safer than any other merchant in the city, and he had helped Darby out on the spot ever since he found himself on the streets.
These will hold up in court,
the Scoutman asks.
I can't go ahead with anything if they are holding a paper trial, Giran.
Don't worry, my sharp-roiled friend. These are airtight. The broker's gold tooth glinted as he smiled lazily, leaning back in his chair. Everything you'd need to overturn your death certificate and explain your absence for the last 9 years. I took the liberty of cleaning up some loose ends as well, considered on the house for services rendered.
Thank you,
Darby says, gathering up the papers and slipping them back into the folder they came in. Are you leaving the game then? I can take you off my list of people to contact on behalf of clients.
Yes, I've learned from Stain that, ironically, sometimes you don't need to kill someone to put them in an early grave. He murdered the League of Villains without ever meeting their leader. Your own failures to recruit for them prove that. I think it's time for me to do the same.
Izuku pants in front of All Might, brushing the dust and metal bits off of his gym uniform. He had come second in the day's parkour race, losing only narrowly to Sarah's superior mobility. He stood, and carefully picked his way back to the observation deck as All Might moved to his next spot. Katsuki was there to greet him with a smirk on his face, his own gym uniform scorched in several places, like usual. Hey, second place, his best friend says with a smirk, clapping her on the back roughly. How's it feel to be slower than me now? You cheated in your round? Izuku complains, stretching out as they waited for the next round. Not all of us have quirks with which to pull random power-ups out of. Remember what happened last time we raced Crackless? It wasn't me who ended up face first in a dumpster because they tried to fly. Shut up and take it, nerd, the blonde whines. That was months ago. It wouldn't happen again. Sure, Kachan, whatever you say. Anyways, what do you think they'll do for our finals? I heard from some upperclassmen that there will be lots of robots to blow to scrap. No, I think we'll be fighting teachers. Neza has been awful cagey about our exam, and after all the attacks recently, they need to be seen stepping things up. Izuku straightened, stretching his arms out now. If we prepare for teachers and end up with robots, we'll be way better off anyways. And if we do fight the teachers, you'll surely be matched up against All Might, so you better work hard the next few weeks. Bullshit! He better work hard to beat me, that muscle-bound gorilla. Katsuki blasted his palms together, an excited grin gracing his face. I can't wait! Fighting teachers sounds awesome! We need to hit the gym every day. We can drag Shinzo there too, put some more muscle on the pipe cleaner. The pipe cleaner in question bolted off the roof as the whistle went for a strong to start, burning through the city with impressive dexterity. As the two turned to watch, he whipped out with some capture cloth and swung around a turn, quickly edging into second place behind Uraraka. The gravity-free girl was using her quirk to make massive leaps across city blocks, and her lead was only growing. "He's really improved," Izuku remarks, studying his friend's form. "Hard to tell he had almost no training before getting into UA." "Yeah, his form is great right now, looking less like a shitty extra every day." "Oh, I'm sure you've noticed his form, haven't you, Kachan?" "What the fuck is that supposed to mean?" The blonde turned away from the mock industrial zone to chase his friend around the deck, the classmates scrambling out of the way as the two rampaged around the area. Izuku's taunts and giggles ringing out over the city in a now familiar fashion. Deep in the slums of Musutafu, a blonde girl in a tattered school uniform giggles to herself as she rewinds a clip on her cracked phone. The video starts playing again, the hero killer's voice ringing out to condemn the leak in his last moments. The girl grins, showing a mouth full of teeth alongside fangs, and zooms into the corner of the video. "Ooh, Dynamite, you look so pretty and covered in blood like that," she mumbles to herself, the video showing a grainy picture of a blonde teen slumped behind the serial killer, blood staining his uniform in several places. "I can't wait to be with you forever. Only a matter of time now and I can show my love for you." The video stops, and the girl sets her phone down and gets up, looking around the tiny room that she has made her home. On one wall, there is a montage of newspaper clippings, showing off a variety of articles. Some proclaiming the debut of Dynamite, others tracking the movements and past of Stain, or her own killings. Front and center of the board, held up by a series of sharp serrated knives, is a map of Musutafu. Circled in a dull red that looks uncanny like blood is the Kiyashi Ward Mall. The girl lovingly strokes the collection of knives on the wall, pulling one out and rubbing it with a filthy rag as she hums to herself. "Blood, blood, I want blood." The eerie song echoes through the room, a perverted children's rhyme. The paper the knife was holding up drifts to the floor, showcasing its headline in bold, blood-stained letters. "Middle schooler goes on murderous rampage. Toga Himiko's crimes." That was chapter 18, and now we swiftly continue on to chapter 19, New Finals. Summary: 1A faces the term finals, and Shinzo faces Izuku. The next few weeks passed uneventfully, and Izuku soon found himself crammed onto a bus with his classmates as they drove towards the testing grounds for the practical. The last few days of written testing had been hellish, but Izuku was fairly confident he had done just as well as he always had throughout middle school. Paul Hitoshi nearly got into a caffeine coma, trying to study for the math exam before Kachan had rescued him with tutoring though. Izuku still wasn't quite sure the boy had recovered the lost sleep, but it was hard to tell given how tired Shinzo always looked. The bus lurched to a stop, and everyone quickly filed out, tension buzzing in the air as they took in their teachers lined up in front of them. Everyone had known that this was likely their challenge, but actually seeing it made it seem much more insurmountable. Aizawa Sensei stepped forwards, the principal popping out of his scarf with a cheer. "Hello, Class 1A!" Nezu shouted excitedly. "I know some of you already figured out the contents of this exam, but I will explain everything anyway. Instead of robots, the staff has voted to make you all fight against the teachers as a better test of your abilities. You will be competing in pairs against one teacher, and all of us will be handicapped by high-density limb weights. You can win by capture or escape, so don't worry about needing to be the real pro hero in combat to pass." Nezu's words didn't seem to reassure many members of the class, but they all nodded and gave some degree of affirmative response. Aizawa pulled a sheet of paper out of his pocket and nudged Nezu onto the ground.
"Alright, I will announce the pairings now,"
the man said gruffly.
"First, Uraraka and Yarozu will fight me. Next will be Bakugo and Todoroki against All Might. Then Aoyama and Zero against 13.
Kesuke fidgeted with his gauntlets as he stared across the aisle of the empty bus at Icy Hot. Hound Dog's words about cooperation and help played through his head on loop as he turned the firing pin over and over in his hands. Finally, as they approached the mock city, he spoke. "We need to work together to pass this, Icy Hot," Katsuki said slowly. "All Might isn't number one for no reason. We just aren't on the same plane as him yet. I don't want to go for escape, though."
"I do not think I wish to escape either,"
Icy Hot said slowly, leaning towards him.
"I thought maybe not fighting All Might was best to piss off my father, but someone has recently showed me that holding myself back to spite him is not the most productive way."
"I don't give a fuck about your family drama, Icy Hot. How are we going to beat All Might? I bet my best explosions will barely put a dent in him."
"I think I have a plan that may work, but you should call me Todoroki."
The two-toned boy lashed his fingers together concernedly.
"Not knowing my name makes you look stupid."
Ahmed stalked forwards as the timer started, Nez's recorded voice ringing out over the arena. Or at least he thought it was recorded. He wouldn't put it past the rat to be multitasking to this extent, even while fighting his own battle. The number one hero grinned, rolling his shoulder in preparation for what was to come.
"Come out, heroes!"
he roared, smashing his fist into a building to his right, demolishing it and several behind it in one blow. Ahmed had spent the week resting and not using his hero form in preparation for this exam, and he had plenty of energy to expend to properly test his successor and the boy's classmate.
"I'll tear the city down if you don't face me!"
Dust swirled across the street in waves, and in front of him he spotted an area where the dust was behaving oddly. Upon further inspection, the dust proved to be rising and swelling upwards as though the sidewalk was heated, and the cause of this wave of heat was soon revealed as young Todoroki appeared out of the debris. His left side was lit up like a beacon, and young Bakugo was silhouetted behind him. Both the boys were streaked in sweat and dust, and from the angle it seemed like they had spent the last few minutes hiding in one of the buildings planning. Bakugo in particular was drenched, a fact that slightly alarmed All-Might. As far as he knew, his pupil could not produce sweat that fast on his own. Was this an effect of One for All? All-Might dashed forwards, one arm outstretched to catch Todoroki in a clothesline. Surprisingly, the boy did not activate his eyesight, merely flaring his fire and jumping out of the way. Bakugo rushed forwards to engage, his skin practically sizzling in the heat as the nitroglycerin coating it popped in micro-explosions. Miraculously, nothing had ignited yet, but All-Might wasn't holding out hope for that for long. Indeed, Bakugo immediately went in for a tackle, seemingly intending to kamikaze the hero. All-Might leapt out of the way, wary of the effects an explosion of that magnitude could have on him. He simply wasn't the spring chicken he used to be, shrugging off bombs left and right. As All-Might dodged backwards, Todoroki was there to meet him, flaming the fire from his arm and spreading it around the street. No buildings had ignited yet, but the debris was crackling merrily, and the temperature was starting to rapidly grow. All-Might felt beads of sweat start to drip down his own brow, One for All making him resilient but not completely immune to heat. He swung his fist at the teen, tossing him backwards into a building with a half-power punch, reduced even further by the weights dragging down his limbs. The fire puffed out for a moment, reassuring him that the boys didn't plan to engulf the entire city in a conflagration. Young Bakugo pressed him immediately before he could consider their plan more though, buying time for Todoroki to get up by setting off a massive explosion at point-blank range. The boy was blown backwards as All-Might slid across the street, scorch marks marring his costume. Yes, that was definitely much stronger than usual. And hard to avoid too, since Bakugo was moving with One for All empowered speed before its ignitions. All-Might shook himself off, starting to grow winded from the weights and heat already. This was the boy's plan then, to simply wear him out. It wouldn't normally work, of course. It took more than a little heat to put the number one down. However, given that they had learned the lesson set out for them and were cooperating excellently, he would let them get the better of him for an instant. It would not do to make it easy, though. All-Might dusted himself off and cracked his knuckles, staring menacingly as the two teens shakily got to their feet to face him. He dashed forwards into the hazy cloud of heat and smoke, the smell of burnt caramel filling his nostrils. Izuku waved merrily to his classmates still on the bus as they dragged Hitoshi behind him as they disembarked. Fighting Present Mike would be a vicious challenge, but he couldn't wait to prove how much he had grown. Izuku had so many great ideas for defeating the voice hero, although some were impractical. He didn't have access to an army of bugs after all. "Come on, Hitoshi, let's go!" Izuku cried. "Time to plan! You wouldn't want to let Kachan down after all."
"Why would I care what Blasty thinks about my performance, Izu?"
The insomniac groaned as he adjusted his voice mask, standing before the gate with the prep time clock ticking down. "Because you have a crush on him, of course!" Izuku stated with absolute confidence.
What? How did you?
Hitoshi stuttered, going bright red.
I mean, I don't have a crush on him. He's rude and arrogant and abrasive. It doesn't matter how strong or handsome or driven he is. I mean, yeah, he has been putting a lot of work into growing and being nicer recently, and he helped me pass my exams and not embarrass myself at the sports festival. But that doesn't mean I like him or anything. How do you even know I'm gay?
"You're a guy, and you have a crush on Kachan," Izuku said merrily, chuckling gleefully. "Sounds pretty gay to me."
That's... what?
"Anyways, we need to plan so you can impress him more. Then maybe he can invent his own feelings and you can stop tiptoeing around each other during game nights."
He what? Tell me what you know."
Hitoshi rounded on the grenade aggressively, blush still painting his face. "Nope, time to plan. So, I was thinking, we are poorly positioned against Present Mike because his long-range attacks can stop me from getting close, and he is too loud for your voice attacks to get through, Izuku dodged his friend's attempt to grab him and pulled out a small computer from a pouch on his costume belt. He wears headphones to play music though, and I happen to know that they run on Bluetooth, so I think we have the basis of a plan building right there.
I hate you so much right now.
The purple-haired teen in front of him moaned, stamping against the city wall. Hitoshi crept forwards in the broken shell of a building, the panes rattling as Present Mike's voice reverberated through the streets. The voice hero was standing by the exit gate, aiming his voice attacks towards each section of the arena as he tried to flush them out or wear them down. It seemed to be working too. Hitoshi's ears were ringing, and he felt woozy as he made his way forwards. Izuku said he could disrupt the shouting and giving him his moment though, so he had to trust in that. True to his word, Present Mike cut off mid-screech a minute later, allowing Hitoshi to make a mad dash forward to execute his part of the plan. He raised his voice changing to his face, clutching the bag he had spent the first half of the exam collecting, as Izuku worked to hack the hero's headphones. Hitoshi runs to the corner of the alleyway to see Present Mike tossing his headphones onto the ground with a shriek, shouting something incomprehensible about rickrolls and ancient memes, and demanding to know if Shota put them up to this. His quirk was still off for the moment as the voice hero reeled from the song karma. Hitoshi seized this moment and threw his bag, watching as it spilled all over Present Mike's feet.
Oh my god, look out, Hisashi!
Hitoshi screamed into his fake vocal cords, Aizawa's voice emanating from it.
That's a lot of bugs!
Bugs! Oh my gosh! The voice hero reacted instinctively as a handful of centipedes and ants crawled out of the sack, responding to the familiar voice without thinking. A moment later he went slack, and Hitoshi commanded him to step away from the bag in an attempt to make up for the psychological warfare. Good job, Hitoshi, Izuku said as he walked up the street, tucking his computer into his bag. Kachin will be so proud he passed.
Shut up, Izuku,
Hitoshi said dryly, clicking the handcuffs onto the unresponsive hero as Nezu's voice rang out to announce their victory.
If I wasn't so happy we passed, you'd be so dead right now.
These two chapters were really great. Like, the first one was kind of a transition chapter, but we get to see that Himiko is in love with Katsuki and not with Izuku. And then we get the first final exam chapter, and Bakugo and Todoroki working together was like really good. And then Hitoshi and Izuku using bugs to pass their exam. But anyways guys, I hope you all enjoyed chapter 18 and 19 of Brighter Light Darker Shadow, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!